saw what Renaissance is. Okay, maybe by reading the text that I have given in the Google Classroom, you may already know how and why Renaissance happened. What are the events that gradually led to Renaissance? And you know, Renaissance is not a thing that has happened all on a sudden. It is not an event like French Revolution or some other historical events. It took a long time. Maybe many of the people did not even experience the Renaissance that we learn today. Maybe the elitist of the elitist, richest of the richest, there was a small class of people who had a change in their life. The lives of the most of the people, more than 90-95% of the people were unaffected by what happened during Renaissance. The rediscovery of Aristotle or the reinterpretation of Aristotle was nothing for the ordinary people living in Italy. But for the elitist of the elitist, it meant something, and their thoughts, their writings, their culture, their art, all of them had an impact in the centuries to come. That is why it is important for us. And we will be looking at the streams of thought that actually viewed what we call Renaissance today. As we know, there was a rekindled interest in ancient classical antiquity, in Greek and Roman thought. For example, we know Neoplatonism, Aristotelianism, Stoicism, Epicureanism, Skepticism. All these kinds of thoughts were very prevalent during the time of Renaissance. They started to dominate the intellectual scene, which became a seedbed for the modern science or modern philosophy to come up. Renaissance, it's a period that extends roughly from the middle of the 14th century to the beginning of the 17th century. So it took around more than 2 centuries or nearly 3 centuries. That period is known as the Renaissance period or the time in which Renaissance movement happened. So if you look at some of the early Renaissance people and the late Renaissance or high Renaissance people, there will be a span of 3 centuries in between them. So that is the time period. A fundamental assumption of Renaissance movement is that with the decline of Roman Empire or with the fall of Western Roman Empire, there was a damage in the culture. Okay, so what they assumed as Dark Ages happens because of the fall of Roman Empire. So there was damage that has happened during the period, means a damage to the culture, a damage to the learning. There was a kind of discontinuity from the ancient classical past. That was the assumption. And the people of the Renaissance period or the scholars of the Renaissance period, they felt that the classical antiquity constituted invaluable source of excellence on which they could depend in order to rebuild their culture. They have a culture that is debased and decadent because of the fall of Roman Empire. After the fall of Roman Empire, their culture got decayed. There was a kind of decadence that happened to their culture. So they thought, looking at the ancient classical past, looking at the classical antiquity, you find resources to rebuild your culture, to repair the damage that has been brought since the fall of Roman Empire. That is the basic assumption, a fundamental assumption of the Renaissance movement. It was also assumed that God gave a single unified truth, and that truth can be found in the work of the ancient philosophers, because in their writings parts of the original deposit of divine wisdom can be found. That was their assumption. So it was often assumed that God had given a single unified truth to humanity, and the works of the ancient philosophers had preserved part of the original deposit of divine wisdom. So this idea laid foundation for a scholarly culture, because if you can find the deposit of the original wisdom, part of the deposit of the original wisdom in the writings of the ancient classical philosophers, you have to read it, you have to learn it, you have to interpret it. So it began to it laid a foundation for the for a scholarly culture that was centered mainly on ancient texts and their interpretation. It also fostered a kind of approach which intended to bring about a kind of harmony, because there are divergent philosophical positions, divergent philosophical accounts that were available to them. Towards the end of the medieval period, there are so many systems of thought, there are so many new doctrines, both religious and other, all are existing. So when they tried to read and reinterpret the ancient classical philosophy, they took an approach that would reconcile all these different streams of philosophy. The newly available text stimulated their interest in understanding the Greek and Roman thought, which was previously unknown, or sometimes even if the text was available, they were very little read, maybe not read. The text is there, long ago translated, were with them, but they were not interested. We have a library here, we all go to the library, but there are so many texts that are that nobody is interested in. So there can be so many books which are untouched for decades in our library. In the same manner, though they had some of the texts of the Greek philosophers with them, translated long ago, most of them were not interested. But now there is an interest to read all of those texts, which were of little interest or which were previously unknown. When they started to learn different branches of philosophy that were flourishing during the ancient classical period, it eroded a faith in the universal truth of Aristotelian philosophy. Earlier, Aristotle was considered as an authority, or he cannot err, or for truth you have to look at only Aristotle, or sometimes Plato. Plato and Aristotle were dominating the philosophical scene during the most of the medieval period. Plato in the early medieval period, and towards the end of the medieval period, Aristotle also come to the scene. None others were considered seriously. No other streams of thought were considered seriously. So the new study of Stoicism, Epicureanism, skepticism, along with Neoplatonism and Aristotelianism, actually widened the philosophical horizon, providing a rich seedbed for the modern science or modern philosophy to emerge gradually. So actually the scope of philosophy, the scope of learning is widened by this new approach. So we'll be looking at Aristotelianism, Neoplatonism, Neo-Stoicism and Neo-Epicureanism of the Renaissance period. And there are so many scholars who have written on this, but we will be looking at very selectively on those scholars who are of our interest. Maybe in terms of art history and also in terms of understanding the modern.
Father, could you repeat the topics that you just mentioned?
We will be seeing it one after another, so don't worry. Aristotelianism, Neoplatonism, Neo-Stoicism and Epicureanism.